Hey lovelies, War Baby here, just letting you know that I did things a bit differently this episode. Instead of my usual format, telling stories from crime to punishment, I've chosen a few crazy tales that have happened this very summer all around the country. So buckle up and get ready for stories from one crazy summer. The True Crime Podcast meetup will be taking place Saturday, October 6th at 4 p.m. Join me and a slew of other hosts at Idle Hour in North Hollywood to have a drink and chat. Find a list of participating shows on my Instagram at Killer Kids Pod. New patrons for the month are Jean, welcome to the elementary school tier, and Denise Berg, say hello to the middle school tier. As always, thanks for listening and for your continued support. Episode number 19, One Crazy Summer. Part 1, Nyla Lightfoot. On May 29, 2018, 14-year-old Nyla Lightfoot of Fort Worth, Texas, was stabbed to death outside her friend's apartment. When plans for a sleepover were thwarted, the 13-year-old suspect told Nyla that she needed to come over to get her clothes back and bring back the suspect's clothing, which they had swapped. Typical teenage girl stuff, right? Once Nyla arrived at the suspect's apartment, an argument and then a physical altercation took place. According to the victim's mother, Antoinette Carter, the girls had a fistfight, and her daughter, who was older, was the victor. Authorities state that the juvenile suspect went inside, retrieved a steak knife from her kitchen, went back outside and stabbed Nyla in the back as she attempted to leave.
She whooped you. You should have just accepted it. But now you had to go back in the house and get a knife to come back and stab and kill my baby. Now I'm daughterless, and my heart feel like it's just been ripped out and just stomped on. She made straight A's. She was friends with everybody. She didn't need this.
The stabbing took place in the early morning hours, with police responding to the 911 call made just before 3:30 a.m. at the Sycamore Center Villa Apartments in South Fort Worth, Texas. According to Fort Worth police spokesman Bradley Perez, Nyla was dead on arrival at John Peter Smith Hospital. The Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office stated that the 14-year-old suffered multiple stab wounds to her chest and neck. Nyla's mother also stated that the 13-year-old suspect's mother was present during the entire incident and never chose to intervene. On May 31st, State District Judge Timothy Menikos determined that the unnamed juvenile would remain held in custody until her trial.
Texas law, you have to be at least the age of 14 years old where they can even consider certification or transferring you to an adult court. The Tarrant County District Attorney's Office has been historically aggressive when it comes to prosecuting individuals in a juvenile matter, especially in the case where a homicide or a murder is involved.
The 13-year-old juvenile suspect's mother, who was present at her first court hearing, stated that the real truth will soon come out.
The grandfather of Nyla Lightfoot hopes prosecutors seek the maximum penalty a juvenile can face.
We just want justice. Everybody need prayer. That's all I have to say. Just pray for everybody. I don't wish nothing bad on nobody. Just want justice to be served.
Part 2, David Abshire and Tom Papineau. On June 4, 2018, an unidentified 15-year-old girl struck and killed two men during a driving lesson in a parking lot. In Port Richmond, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, friends and roommates David Abshire and Tom Papineau were struck by a 2008 Ford Explorer as the teen was reportedly learning how to park. As her mother attempted to direct her into a parking space, the girl accelerated rapidly, jumping the curb and lunging over the sidewalk. Her vehicle went straight for a group of 4 men who regularly used this spot in front of the Dollar Tree as their casual hangout. Victims David and Tom, plus buddies Robert Kennedy and Tim Stewart, were sitting in camping chairs just in front of the parking spot. Robert sensed disaster approaching and quickly tried to push the guys out of harm's way. Sadly, he was only able to get Tim out of the way, and both David and Tom were struck. The men were plowed into and pinned against the exterior wall of the Dollar Tree store. A week later, a vigil was held in the parking lot right at the spot where the fatal accident occurred. The pastor of the men's church spoke a few kind words, and a dozen or so friends and family members released clusters of white balloons and grieved publicly. A month later, the deadly driving mother-daughter duo were arrested and charged with the deaths of David and Tom. The mother and owner of the Explorer is 32-year-old Stephanie Hernandez. She was charged with homicide by vehicle, involuntary manslaughter, along with other related offenses. Her daughter, the 15-year-old unidentified juvenile driver, was charged with causing an accident resulting in death, driving without a license, as well as involuntary manslaughter. Under Pennsylvania law, a child must be 16 years of age to obtain a learner's permit. Both women are currently awaiting trial in Pennsylvania. Part 3. Matt Minkler. On June 8th, police in Henderson, Nevada attempted a traffic stop on a reckless driver around 7:20 p.m. As officers tried to pull them over, the car ran a red light at the intersection of East Sunset Road and Green Valley Parkway, resulting in a one-car crash at the intersection. 5 teenage boys bailed out at the crash site, but most were apprehended soon after. By then, police had determined that the Mercedes had been stolen in Las Vegas the previous week. 17-year-old Cody Harland and 16-year-old Jaiden Caruso were taken in for questioning. Very quickly, Cody tells police that he witnessed his friend Jayden shoot their friend Matt while playing Russian Roulette in an abandoned house.
A vacant house and a group of teens. According to the arrest report, 17-year-old Matthew Minkler was killed, shot in the face during a modified game of Russian Roulette, where only 16-year-old Jaiden Caruso held the gun and pulled the trigger.
He took officers to the scene where police quickly located the body of 17-year-old Matthew Minkler, another boy from their friend group. Henderson police spokesman Scott Williams said that officers were led to a closet downstairs in the abandoned house where Matt's body had been stuffed and then concealed with a plastic sheet. "Fuck Matt" was spray painted on the outside of the closet door. 17-year-old Cody Harland and 16-year-old Jaiden Caruso, plus one unidentified minor, left, then returned to the scene of the murder before the car crash to move Matt to the closet, clean the crime scene, and dispose of evidence.
Henderson police say Caruso even bragged about it on social media, posting videos while Matthew was still bleeding on the floor. The teens also stole Matthew's wallet, swiping $300 for drugs and new shoes for Caruso, since according to the report, blood had stained his others.
Jaiden Caruso was charged with murder with a deadly weapon and robbery. Cody Harland was charged with robbery and aiding a felony offender after the fact. Both are charged as adults. The unidentified minor was also apprehended and arrested on charges similar to destroying evidence and accessory to murder.
Just seems very macabre and morbid, and it's just something you don't typically see with juveniles. Is true, real heinous acts committed by people that seem to show no remorse.
Bail for Cody and Jaiden was set at $1,020,000 each, and their preliminary hearing was held July 2nd. They are currently awaiting trial in Nevada.
Hey everyone, I'm Jamie, and I host a podcast called Murderess, which takes you inside stories of murder and other creepy events. The first episode of Murderess lets listeners be a fly on the wall for a first-degree murder trial. The story is told from a juror's perspective, as I was that juror. If you are a true crime junkie and need to know every detail, you'll feel right at home with this podcast. Follow Murderish on Twitter at MurderishPod and on Facebook at Murderish Podcast. And don't worry, this doesn't mean you're a murderer. It just means you're murder-ish.
The call had come in early that morning, and we found ourselves on the road again. The details weren't very clear. All we knew was that someone had shot someone with a gun. The man who met us out front of the poorly maintained apartment building was the manager. He wore the sullen look on his face like a mask. We followed him up the blood-stained stairs to the unit at the top. He unlocked the door and stepped aside. If walls could only talk, these would be screaming. The living room wall led immediately into the hallway and was heavily sprayed with blood. In the middle of it all was the only clean space, and it was a clear outline of a body. Crimson spatter and sickly pink brain matter covered the walls and ceiling. What happened? I didn't think a scene like this could get any worse. I learned I was wrong again. This is the cleaning of John Doe.
War Baby here with an offer from Audible. What would the world look like if everyone just listened more? Listening to audiobooks can be motivating, enlightening, and even bring us closer together. There is absolutely no better place to listen than Audible because members get even more. From exclusive audio fitness programs to audiobooks to Audible originals, you won't be disappointed. As a creator, listening to I Let Him Go by Denise Fergus was an invaluable resource when researching episode 8 about the abduction and murder of her 2-year-old son, James Bulger. Every month, members get 1 credit, good for any audiobook, and 2 originals from a changing selection unavailable anywhere else. With Audible, members can go back and listen again, even if you cancel your membership. Start your 30-day trial today at audible.com/killerkids or text KillerKids to 500-500, and your first selection is free. That's audible.com/KILLERKIDS or text KILLERKIDS to 500-500. Get your first audiobook for free at audible.com/killerkids or text KillerKids to 500-500. There is no limit to what you can do with audiobooks, and Audible gets you there. Part 4. Taija Straight. In a criminal complaint filed against 17-year-old Jayden Straight, authorities allege he beat his 8-month-old daughter, Taija Straight, to death on July 13, 2018. The teen dropped his daughter off at Mercy Medical Center in Des Moines, Iowa on Friday, July 13th, saying that the two had been home alone together when he noticed she was unresponsive.
There were some times where there were some other family members present, but again, based on the medical opinion of the physicians who treated the child and our investigation, that small window of time, well, he was the only one with the child.
At the hospital, staff was immediately suspicious, and doctors concluded that Taija had been very recently assaulted.
Baby Taija arrived here at Mercy Hospital around 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. That's when Mercy put in the call to police to come investigate the injuries they found.
She succumbed to her injuries the next day, having suffered several skull fractures, hemorrhaging, internal injuries, a ruptured spleen, and broken ribs. The physician who treated baby Taija concluded that her injuries were consistent with a deliberate assault and could not be explained as unintentional or accident.
They were injuries that weren't accidental, nothing that an 8-month-old child could probably generate on their own.
Investigators made it clear that they felt Raja's injuries occurred during the time that Jayden told them the two were home alone. Taija passed away during the afternoon hours of Saturday, July 14th, and Jayden surrendered to police at 2 a.m. that night. He was charged with first-degree murder and child endangerment resulting in death. Police do state that other members of Jayden's family, including his mother, had been in and out of the house all day. Jayden's mother said she had last seen them at 2 p.m.